Iran can close the Strait of Hormuz. And when they do, America has exactly 83 days. Not 90 days, not 6 months. 83 days before the Strategic Petroleum Reserve hits zero. 83 days before the trucks stop moving. 83 days before the shells go empty. This is the economic weapon America cannot defeat with aircraft carriers. And Iran has been holding it for decades. If you've never seen the math laid out this clearly, you're in the right place. I'm Fin Historian, and today we're going to walk through exactly how a 21-mile strip of water ends the American economy in less than 3 months. Subscribe now, because this isn't opinion. This is arithmetic.
Let's start with the geography. Because the geography is where the trap was set. Pull up a map of the Persian Gulf. Find where it narrows. Right there, 21 miles of water between Iran and Oman. That is the Strait of Hormuz. And through those 21 miles flows 21% of all seaborne oil on Earth, every day. Saudi crude, Iraqi crude, Kuwaiti, Emirati, Qatari crude. One exit door, and Iran sits at the hinge. This isn't a new vulnerability. The Carter Doctrine of 1980 declared Persian Gulf access a vital national interest worth going to war over. 45 years later, nothing has changed. Except the math has gotten worse. Here is the math. America produces 13.2 million barrels of oil per day. America consumes 20.5 million barrels of oil per day. That is a 7.3 million barrel daily deficit every single day. That deficit has to come from somewhere. Some from Canada, some from Mexico, some from the Gulf. The moment the strait closes, that deficit doesn't get filled, and the global price of everything doesn't just rise, it detonates. Because America isn't the only country that loses Gulf oil. Japan loses 83% of its energy imports through that strait. South Korea loses over 70%. Germany, which already learned what energy dependency costs, faces another catastrophe. Every factory that goes dark in Tokyo is a supply chain that connects to an American retailer. Every assembly line that stops in Seoul is a component that never reaches an American manufacturer. The Strait of Hormuz is not a regional choke point. It is the circulatory system of the global industrial economy, and Iran holds the scalpel. Now let's talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, because this is always America's answer. 371 million barrels sitting in salt caverns in Louisiana and Texas. That sounds like a lot, until you do the division. 20.5 million barrels consumed per day. 0 imports, 18 days. The reserve lasts 18 days without a single import. But emergency protocols buy more time. Ground the discretionary flights, restrict industrial consumption, throttle non-essential trucking, ration gasoline. Do all of that, and the reserve extends to 83 days. 83, that is the number. That is the entire buffer between normal American life and complete energy collapse. And here is what those 83 days actually look like. Day 1, the strait goes quiet. Oil futures don't rise. They explode. Inflation that was already uncomfortable becomes existential. The Federal Reserve cannot fix this with interest rate policy. You cannot print oil. Day 22. Jet fuel reserves hit critical levels. Commercial aviation starts getting restricted. Cargo flights get prioritized over passengers. The e-commerce economy that Americans built their entire lives around begins to fracture. Day 22 is when you feel it personally. Packages stop arriving. Pharmaceutical supply chains start flashing warning lights. Prices on everything that moves by air start moving in one direction only. Day 30. Diesel. Diesel is the one that truly matters, because diesel is what moves America. 70% of all freight in the United States moves by truck. Every product on every shelf arrived on a diesel-powered vehicle at some point in its journey. Diesel reserves support 22 days of normal consumption. By day 30, trucking companies are triaging routes. Rural communities get cut first, then mid-sized cities. Then even the logistics hubs that were supposed to be immune. Just-in-time delivery doesn't work when there is no time left. And if the closure happens in winter, if Iran chooses January, The crisis gets a third dimension entirely: the northeastern United States. 38 million people. Heating oil reserves covering 47 days of winter consumption. 47 days. In a cold January, that is not a logistics problem. That is a humanitarian emergency happening inside the borders of the wealthiest country in history. The political pressure that generates, the panic decisions that produces, all of it accelerates every other timeline simultaneously. Now, here is where the strategy becomes almost elegant in its brutality. Iran does not need to defeat the US Navy. The Navy is not the target. The target is the insurance market. When Lloyd's of London decides that transiting the Strait of Hormuz carries unacceptable risk, commercial tankers don't sail. Not because the Navy isn't there, because the insurance math doesn't work. We saw the preview in the Red Sea in 2024. Houthi drones, a militia, not a nation, forced global shipping companies to reroute around Africa, added weeks to transit times, added hundreds of millions in costs. Iran has the fourth largest naval force in the region, shore-based anti-ship missiles, decades of rehearsed denial strategy built specifically for this corridor. The calculation insurers make when Iran is the actor is categorically different from the Houthi scenario. Every day the strait stays effectively closed, the clock counts down. Every day, diplomacy runs through its predictable stages: condemnations, emergency sessions, back-channel negotiations. Is another day subtracted from 83. Iran operates on political time. America operates on petroleum inventory time. Those are not the same clock. And the gap between them is where the damage lives. The historical parallel is 1973. The Arab oil embargo lasted 5 months. In 5 months, oil prices quadrupled. America entered a decade of stagflation. Bretton Woods ended. The petrodollar system was born as a direct response. One embargo, 5 months, generational consequences. The Strait of Hormuz scenario dwarfs 1973 in both scale and speed. And the global economy of today is more integrated, more supply chain dependent, more sensitive to energy shocks than the economy of 1973 by every measurable metric. This is what asymmetric economic warfare looks like when it is executed perfectly. Iran doesn't need nuclear weapons to threaten America. Iran doesn't need intercontinental missiles. Iran needs one decision, one naval operation, and 83 days of patience. Because 83 days is not a long time to resolve a geopolitical crisis. 83 days is not enough time to restore global energy confidence. 83 days is not enough time to prevent the kind of economic damage that takes a decade to reverse. Military dominance and economic invulnerability are not the same thing. America can project more naval power into the Persian Gulf than any nation on Earth. What it cannot do is make commercial insurers accept unacceptable risk on the same timetable that strategic reserves require. The weapon Iran holds is not a missile. It is a geographic fact, amplified by a global oil market that spent 75 years building itself around the assumption that the strait stays open. 83 days. That is the number. That is the entire margin. Whether America has a credible answer to it is the question that deserves far more serious attention than it gets. That is what we do here at FinHistorian. If you want the analysis that shows you how the real machinery of global power operates, not the headlines, not the spin, the actual mechanics, subscribe now. The next video goes deeper into the one country that has already quietly war-gamed this scenario and started building its exit strategy. You will not want to miss it.